Let's begin by observing our curious tendency to feel important when we believe we own someone. We often say, "That's my husband," or "That's my wife," as if the other person were a piece of property. And from this sense of possession grows jealousy, a feeling that we must protect what we own. Isn't that strange? The more jealous we become, the more we obsess over what we think is ours, as if love depended on control. We even feel a small delight in owning a dog or a cat, calling it our pet. It creates a warm, comforting feeling. This idea of being important because I own something makes us feel secure, no longer unsure of our place in the world. We cling to that security for dear life, so much so that when we imagine owning another person, we experience a peculiar kind of power. But in reality, jealousy doesn't arise from the other person's actions. It arises from our own longing to feel worthy, essential, or significant. Jealousy isn't love. Some might say, "But I love my partner." Surely a bit of jealousy is natural. Yet if we look more closely, we see that too often what we call love is really a mutual arrangement for comfort or to avoid loneliness. We want someone to talk to, someone to rely on, someone to fill our emptiness. And that's what we label love, even though it's often an exchange. I give you companionship. You give me security. It's a trade deal dressed up in romance. That may sound harsh, but is it not what's really happening? When we see the truth of this, many of us feel uneasy or even horrified. "I can't bear to look at it," we say. We turn away and carry on, pretending everything's fine, even if it means living with jealousy. We may think, "If only I could find something else, some other pursuit or person, then I'd stop feeling jealous over my husband or wife." But if we merely swap one attachment for another, we still remain caught in the same pattern of possessiveness and envy. Jealousy grows where we cling to something or someone in hopes they'll offer us security. And wherever there's possession, there's a hidden hostility. Oddly, we often hate what we own. Our jealousy is proof that we fear losing that possession. Where there's a drive to possess, love can't survive. Possession and genuine affection don't live together under one roof. Attachment to success, people, and ideas. We live in a world where we're encouraged to chase success, whether that's becoming a famous artist, a successful business person, or a champion of religious ideals. Ambition is celebrated. But behind that ambition often lurks craving, competition, and pain. Only when our ambition blows up in our faces, causing suffering, do we question if something's wrong. As long as ambition feels rewarding, we welcome it as part of our nature. Attachment doesn't just give us pleasure, it can fuel jealousy and anguish. We don't see that the sweet taste of clinging has a hidden bitterness. Usually, we only try to get rid of that bitterness when it becomes unbearable. Physical dependence versus psychological dependence. We all need food, shelter, clothing. Depending on one another for these basic needs is natural, but psychological dependency, where our sense of self relies on someone else, brings jealousy and fear. We say, "I love my family, I can't live without them." Yet the question is whether we're aware of how that dependence drives our worries and insecurities. If we hang on to the pleasures of being attached, that fear never goes away and jealousy keeps rising up to torment us. A bigger picture of life. Let's take a step back and consider what life really is. From birth to death, and perhaps beyond, life is vast and complicated, a tapestry of love, hate, greed, disappointment, success, failure, fears, wars, faith, and searching for peace. All of that is happening at once. Sometimes we find a moment of joy here or a burst of sorrow there, and then we're off to the next struggle. Even if we manage to climb to the top of the social ladder, we're still caught in the same messy reality as everyone else. War, conflict, and borders keep dividing us. People argue over God and religion, each convinced they've found the answer. This is the grand play of living. Yet we often feel lost, wrestling with the same jealousy and competition as our neighbors. We've built a world that runs on ambition, envy, and profit, a world where each person is pitted against the other. Then we educate children to fit right into this system. It's no wonder war and division persist. What is true education? Most parents and teachers want children to succeed, to earn respect and security. But real love would mean helping them grow beyond such narrow definitions of success. Real love wouldn't force children to become part of a broken system. Yet social pressures shape parents' fears, and the cycle continues. We call it duty or responsibility, but if we peel back the layers, it's often just fear. We hear people say, "We hope the next generation will create a new world," but then we mold them into the old ways, teaching them to be ambitious, jealous, and dependent, just like we are. If we truly wanted a better world, we'd help them become human beings who can step outside this cycle, who can see through it and be free of it, learning by looking within. So, what can we do? We can start by realizing that no one else can truly educate us in the deeper sense. We have to observe, question, and learn for ourselves. Real education isn't just memorizing facts or passing tests. It's about discovering who we are, seeing our motives, our desires, our fears. That sort of self-understanding never ends. When we get lazy, we're right back to suffering, jealousy, conflict. A mind that knows how to learn, truly learn, is constantly exploring, not just piling up more and more information. It's about staying open, curious, and aware. It means we play and engage with life, not merely to win, but to experience. We keep our bodies healthy, our minds clear. We observe ourselves without judgment, noticing how we get jealous, how we fear loss, and how we cling to people or beliefs. We see that all these attachments create more suffering. When we're gentle with ourselves and others, when we touch that place of real love inside, beyond possession and attachment, something shifts. We start to realize that real freedom comes not from owning or controlling, but from understanding ourselves. Because in that understanding, there's no room for jealousy, no room for fear. And perhaps in that space, true love can finally flourish. Most of us wrestle with desire because we're afraid of being let down. Whether it's the desire for wealth, status, power, comfort, immortality, or even the quest to be loved forever, desire can feel like a mighty force. We hop from one object of longing to the next, believing we've changed simply because our target shifted from this to that. But underneath, it's still the same longing. And in chasing these desires, we get stuck in a cycle of inner conflict, always hoping the next goal will finally soothe our restless hearts. Watching desire unfold. Have you ever noticed how desire pops up? You see something you like, a beautiful house, a shiny car, a powerful person, and a certain thrill arises. First, there's the simple fact of noticing something appealing. Then a feeling sparks. I want that. Almost immediately, the mind steps in and says, I've got to have it. Thought and desire move together like dancers in lockstep. The more you think about that house or that person, the more your craving grows. The mind latches on, and soon the urge to possess or become takes over. How desire takes root. When you see something pleasing, there's a burst of sensation or delight. Then the mind steps in with ideas. Wouldn't it be fantastic if I owned that? If I had that house or that job, I'd be happy. This chain reaction isn't complicated. You notice, you feel a spark, the mind gives it a story, and suddenly you're chasing an image. We call that desire. And it often comes bundled with conflict. One part of you wants it, another part isn't sure, or maybe other desires clash with it. All this tug of war spins in your head and becomes your daily experience. Understanding, not crushing desire. Society and religion often say, beat down your desires, subdue them, or deny them. Yet if you forcibly repress your desires, you might lock your heart in a cage. You'll see people who try to distance themselves from every joy, avoiding music, turning away from nature, renouncing relationships, hoping they'll be holier for it. But watch them closely. Beneath that rigid facade, there's often turmoil. If the mind hasn't really understood the roots of desire, the conflict rages on behind the scenes. It's not about destroying your desires, it's about understanding them. When desire doesn't take hold, if we can see how desire arises without instantly trying to reject or indulge it, something remarkable happens. The mind becomes quiet. Desire may still float by, like a cloud passing overhead, but it doesn't hook you in. It doesn't take root and grow into a storm of, "I must have it." That space, that calm, is what true understanding brings. As long as we simply fight desire or try to replace one craving with another, we never really solve anything. But if we watch it, let it appear and fade, then it no longer fuels our anxiety. Can we just notice desire without acting on it? For many of us, desire means action. I want it, therefore I chase it. We become driven by the impulse to possess something or become someone because it feels so good to win or achieve. But if you look deeper, you might find a hidden emptiness, a place where we don't feel complete. So we keep trying to fill that hole with clothes, cars, acclaim, or spiritual goals. Yet no matter how much we stuff into that emptiness, we stay restless. Why do we crave so much? You might ask yourself, why am I driven by so many desires? We want happiness, God, wealth, fame, freedom, wholeness, a perfect marriage, a perfect union with the divine, a perfect anything. Isn't that endless craving a sign of how lonely and hollow we feel inside? If we never pause to see that emptiness for what it is, we'll forever chase one desire after another. Recognizing our own inner void may be uncomfortable, but it's the first real step to peace. Desire itself is not the enemy. Desire by itself isn't the problem. It's our knee-jerk reaction to indulge, suppress, or escape it that ties us in knots. We wrestle with cravings and then judge ourselves or try to switch them off, which only adds more tension. Even when we force ourselves to let go, the core desire remains, waiting for its next chance to claim our hearts. True freedom isn't about erasing desire, but seeing it clearly, giving it room to arise and dissolve without gripping us or compelling us to act. In that light of understanding, desire can still visit, but it won't dominate. And that's when we touch a freedom that feels both natural and extraordinary.